Hello and welcome to Deep Cuts, a show dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the gory in all your favorite horror movies. I'm your host, Matthew Bolton, and today we're going to get a little bit more romantic while celebrating Valentine's Day to explore the 2001 slasher flick, Valentine. Directed by Jamie Blanks of urban legend fame, and starring Denise Richards, David Boreanaz, Marley Shelton, Jessica Capshaw, and Katherine Heigl, Valentine definitely delivers when it comes to kills. Loosely based on the novel of the same name by Tom Savage, Valentine follows a group of women in San Francisco who are stalked by a man they pretty much tormented in the 6th grade. Like, really fucking bad. At the time, most horror films are following the Scream self-aware motif, but Valentine tried to give its audiences a little bit more of a retro slasher killer vibe, and for the most part it delivered just that. After a lot of directors came and went, and the script had to be revised many times early on, in the fall of 2000, Valentine finally got to go into production. And how well did this seasonal flick hold up? Well, let's get right down to business and find out. Our story begins at a 1988 junior high Valentine's Day dance, where we see Jeremy Milton, the scrawny kid in school who's asking many of his classmates to dance. Unfortunately for Jeremy, everybody says no except for Dorothy, who decides she'd rather trade the dance for a makeout session under the bleachers. The two kiss and are enjoying some innocent young love when a couple of douchebags come to make fun of them both. Feeling embarrassed about being seen making out with Jeremy, Dorothy backs off and plays into the bully's narrative that Jeremy attacked her. Jeremy gets an anxious nosebleed and the jerks pour a bowl of punch onto him in a very Carrie sort of way. Then the same assholes pull off Jeremy's clothes, very macho, and then chase him in his underwear into the crowded dance floor, where they proceed to kick him and the entire school cheers for some reason? Where the fuck are all the chaperones at this thing? We jump forward in time 13 years later to join Shelley on a super misogynistic date with Jason, who uses the worst flirting technique in history to ultimately blow his chances of dessert with Shelley. After calling for the check, Shelley takes off and goes to a UCLA morgue to work on her final exam. Shout out to the film's DP, Rick Boda, who directed 3 of the Hellraiser movies. Once inside the morgue, Shelley is about to get to work on her cadaver Chad, whose company is much more enjoyable than Jason's. Before she cuts into Chad, she's interrupted by a noise in the back locker room, and walks back to investigate, only to walk into a fellow student jump scare. After her friend leaves, Shelley notices a red envelope taped to the inside of her locker, with a pretty cool Valentine inside, before returning to Chad. She continues where she left off and is about to cut into Chad before— holy shit! After finding Chad in the closet, she doesn't notice that the person on the operating table has disappeared. Trying to get the hell out of there quick, she's grabbed by an unseen person and stabs them to free herself and run, only to find out that she's locked inside the building. This is the first time that we get to see the killer in their full getup, which is really not as silly as you would think with that Cupid mask on. The killer moves for Shelley, and she's able to put some distance between them through the corridors of the medical school hallways, and eventually ends up in a hiding place in a body freezer. The killer enters the freezer and starts stabbing body bags as it moves further into the room, knowing that Shelley must have hidden inside one of them. When the killer reaches the final body bag, they open it and slice Shelley's throat, giving us the first kill of the movie 12 minutes and 51 seconds into it. The killer gets a nosebleed and walks away as Shelley bleeds out in the body bag. We jump over to Kate and Paige as they sit down for a turbo date night at a local restaurant. After Kate receives a phone call informing them that Shelley has been murdered, we jump to the funeral, and after the funeral, Kate walks away with her alcoholic ex-boyfriend Adam, as they give us way too much backstory of their relationship than we asked for, before Adam takes off. The rest of Kate's wolf pack arrive and they discuss Shelley's death. Detective Vaughn shows up and asks them a few questions about Shelley. After the entire audience is caught up to speed on the plot, Detective Vaughn brings up a possible suspect, which none of them know. Afterwards, we go home with Dorothy to her sick mansion. She walks in to find a similar Valentine to what Shelley received just before her death, and then answers the door for con man Campbell, who is looking for a place to stay. Dorothy tells him to move in right away, and then she gets into a small spat with her younger stepmother Kim. We then jump to Kate's place as she washes her hair in the shower before hearing a sound in her apartment. She looks around and doesn't see anyone, but then notices that none of the water is working in her apartment, and has to rinse her hair in the toilet, like a true survivor. She gets a phone call that draws her back into the living room, where she notices that the front door is now open. She hears the bell from the elevator in the hallway and goes to investigate, only to find a Cupid mask blocking the elevator door. She's then greeted by her creepy Dr. Seuss neighbor, Scary Gary, who only can speak in rhyme.
How about a date, Kate? You could be my mate, Kate. This could be our fate, Kate.
We then jump over to Lily and Paige watching a dating video before Lily receives a Valentine signed by JM. She dives right into her Valentine's candy and gets a mouthful of maggots before the two start to discuss who JM could possibly be. They bring up Jeremy Milton and acknowledge for the first time in the film how mean they were to him. Later, the group meets up at a super 90s art show created by Lily's guy friend, Max, who looks like he was auditioning to be a part of a biopic about Scott Stapp from Creed. The group explore the art exhibit and split up while wandering through the super weird shit. Lily and Max, make out a bit, and Max's assistant Amy tries to join in for some threesome action. Lily isn't having any of it and she bails on Max, only to find an empty part of the exhibit that she seems to get trapped in pretty quick. The exhibit seems to turn on Lily in a bad way as she tries to escape, and she's then pegged by a few of Cupid's arrows before a final shot hits her like a freight train, knocking her over a banister and down like 10 stories into a dumpster. The rest of the group come to find Campbell being accosted in the lobby by Ruthie, one of Campbell's previous marks, who is asking him for her money back. He shrugs her off and everybody seems to split. We then join Kate and Adam as they sit at a bar talking about the apartment situation from earlier. Adam orders a club soda to show Kate he's given up drinking for her, but Kate still says no way on that play. The next day, the group sits with Detective Vaughn as he shows them Shelley's Valentine that she received, and the group admits to the detective that they have received similar threats. They mention Jeremy Milton to him, and Dorothy keeps up the lie about Jeremy attacking her, at least until they get outside and she admits to Kate and Paige that she lied about the entire thing, all while having a random southern accent come in and out of her speech in this scene. Paige calms the situation by reminding them that
Jeremy Milton couldn't manage a water fountain without screwing up. I don't think he's capable of an intricate revenge plot.
Later, Kate looks up Jeremy on her Interlink browser, super original name, and she comes up with no results. It's not gonna be that easy, Kate. Oh wait, she already has a file on Jeremy? Why'd she need to even do a web search? You know what? Never mind. Here comes Angel. Adam. He's there for a dinner date that Kate forgot about, and we jump ahead to after the dinner because Kate explains the entire plot to Adam that we've already seen already. Adam really sells that he's a good guy and turns down an offer from Kate to come upstairs, and reassures her that there's nothing to worry about in regards to Jeremy Milton. The next day at the police station, the group comes clean about what they did to Jeremy at the dance to Detective Vaughn. He then proceeds to try to get them to recognize what Jeremy could possibly look like today using the worst facial construction software I have ever seen in my life.
But know anybody that looks like this? Or this? Or this? Or this?
Vaughn then asks all the women who they're dating, and Dorothy is questioned a bit more about Campbell as the girls start to realize she's being scammed. Dorothy doesn't need to listen to any more of it, and she bails. Luckily, she and Kate get out of there before Vaughn creepily hits on Paige. Like, fucking gross, dude. Later, the Cupid killer sneaks back into Kate's apartment, only to kill her creepy neighbor, Scary Gary, as he's caught doing whatever the fuck this is called. Kate arrives at home and Adam is outside waiting for her. He was somehow questioned by Detective Vaughn, even though Kate was just coming from there? I don't actually know because the timeline on Valentine's Day in this movie is insanely confusing. He asks Kate to be his date for Dorothy's Valentine's Day party that night, and she agrees. He gives her a nice little heart-shaped lollipop and she gives him a handwritten IOU? How romantic, Kate. Anyway, Adam gets lost and Kate goes upstairs to be startled by Paige in her bathroom. There also seems to be no signs of Scary Gary left in the apartment, so at least the Cupid killer cleans up after himself. Dorothy calls to let them know that Detective Vaughn is probably the largest overachiever on the force and that he actually picked up Campbell for questioning. And moments later, Detective Vaughn calls to let them know that they picked up Marquette, so he's definitely the busiest cop on the force. Because this is still technically in the same timeline? Cutting back to Dorothy's pad and Campbell's fixing the hot tub. Dorothy comes up and gives him a watch for Valentine's Day and offers him some sweet loving. Unfortunately for Dorothy, Campbell can't perform. He tries to make it up to her later by giving her a Cupid necklace before he bails to go try and complete a wire transfer at the pool. Before Campbell can rip off Dorothy completely, he's interrupted by Dorothy on the intercom, asking him to relight the house's water heater. He leaves the pool house and a massive amount of evidence behind and goes down to the house's basement. We get a pretty cool Cupid killer reveal here, and Campbell gets an axe to the back, putting him down for the count. Later, at the most bitching fucking Valentine's Day party ever, we meet up with our group, enjoying the cool early 2000s techno rock, and Dorothy is starting to crack under the pressure of Campbell not returning for the party. Adam shows up just in time to break up the awkward situation, and he and Kate make their way out to the dance floor, where Adam cashes in the IOU from earlier. So romantic. Paige sees Brian from turbo dating earlier in the movie, and he drops a smooth as hell pickup line.
Hey, hot stuff.
Like that would ever work. Oh, it totally worked. Brian turns out to be a total piece of garbage as a human being, and Paige tricks him into thinking he's about to have the night of his life, as she ties him up and eventually leaves him with a shitload of hot wax on his dick. Paige meets up with Kate downstairs and they confront Campbell's last mark before Dorothy is told she's wearing the mark's necklace. Still living in a complete state of denial, Dorothy refuses to return the necklace, and Paige and Kate kick Ruthie Walker to the curb. Paige decides she's done for the night and decides to go down and take a dip in the hot tub, while Kate runs into Max and comes to find that Lily actually never made it to LA like everyone thought. Ruthie Walker breaks back in to steal some shit and finds the Cupid killer moving a body in the game room. She tries to hide and almost survives before stupidly leaving her hideout to be tossed through a glass shower wall. I do have to give credit where credit is due, and although Ruthie Walker is a pretty useless character throughout the course of this film, she does get the film's coolest death scene by far. Kate meets up with Dorothy and the two try to meet up with Paige since they believe Jeremy may show up to the party. Dorothy suggests grabbing her gun and Kate says the dumbest line ever in a horror movie by a victim.
That's just a good way to get us both killed.
Kate gets a call from Detective Vaughn saying that they had to let Marquette go, and that he may be at their party, and that the detective is on his way. Kate stumbles upon Adam pounding tall boys of champagne and tells him to get lost. We dive down into the jacuzzi room where Paige is taking a dip in a suspiciously empty hot tub at a Valentine's Day party. Paige later notices a rose on the edge of the hot tub and gets out to seek her suitor. Unfortunately for Paige, it's Cupid, and he is pissed. He throws her into the hot tub and locks her underneath the hot tub cover. He somehow finds a power drill and uses it to drill holes into the cover, terrifying Paige below. Ultimately, he kills Paige by tossing the drill into the tub with her, blowing a fuse and breaking up the party in the process. Dorothy accuses Adam of possibly being the killer, and Kate says no way before Dorothy finally gets to lay all of her shit out on the table for Kate about how she was always the fat girl. Which, by the way, at no point is Dorothy ever represented, even in the young version of Dorothy or the adult version of Dorothy in this film, as somebody who's fat. I mean, come on, Hollywood. Kate walks outside to call Detective Vaughn, who she finds dead in a nearby stream. She runs back inside to find Adam approaching her in the dark, and she creepily allows him to dance with her, and Adam is completely smashed as he talks to her like a complete psycho. After Kate's had enough, she knees Adam in the dick and runs away to Dorothy's room with no Dorothy in sight. Adam catches up with her and she runs away downstairs and discovers Paige in the tub, now extra crispy. Adam finds Kate again and she gives him another bottle, only this time it takes him down to the ground. She then runs to discover Ruthie Walker before trying to call the cops from Dorothy's dad's office. Since the lines are dead, she grabs a gun and disregards her line from earlier. She then makes her way through her house in a total effort to stretch out runtime, and she ultimately runs into the Cupid killer at the top of the stairs. Cupid then tackles Kate and the two tumble down the stairs together. At the bottom, Kate starts to get up and is startled when Cupid starts doing the same. Unfortunately for Cupid, Adam is there and he unloads the entire gun into him. Only, it's not a him. It's... Dorothy? A little bit later, Adam calls the cops and joins Kate as she tries to figure it all out. She doesn't really understand why Dorothy would ever want to be the killer. They embrace, and the film ends with a shot of Adam with a nosebleed. Dun dun dun! And there you have it, 2001's Valentine. Don't worry if you're still a little confused, most people who watch this film are left scratching their heads. Not really for the right reasons. In doing this Valentine's Day episode, I've realized there's not a lot of Valentine's Day horror content out there. And I know Bloody Valentine is a great horror movie for this time of year, but everybody seems to cover it on their coverage, and I want to do something a little bit new. Join me next week when I jump into 1980's The Fog, exploring the first John Carpenter film on this channel. Very exciting stuff. Until then, I've been your host, Matthew Bolton, and this has been Deep Cuts. Thank you so much for watching that episode of Deep Cuts. I know Valentine isn't the greatest film out there, but you know what? It's slim pickings. I'd like to know what you think of the movie in the comments below, and I'll see you next week. Stay screaming.